Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 71 of ZK Live. Tonight, we're going to be talking business, the business of painting. We have an absolute beast of a businessman, a guy who has built a company up in Wisconsin very quickly to be a very profitable company. We're going to find out how he did it. We're going to talk all of the ins and outs of business, the sales process, running a company, all the things that are not applying paint. So if you want to hear about how to apply paint really nicely, this is not going to be the podcast for you. Garrett Martell is going to be joining us in just a minute. Thanks for coming on. I remember exactly where I was when I first met you, and you came up and you were like talking about numbers and business, and I was like, whoa, man, chill out. I don't know all that stuff. We have different markets and our numbers are different, and but you're a very analytical guy. That's safe to say, right?
Yep.
How did you get into this business?
In college, actually, I did college pro painters and absolutely loved it. Learned the business side and graduated, got my master's in management and marketing, and started up my business in Wisconsin officially.
Where did two-day painting come from? Has it always been two-day painting?
Not in college, no. Once I started my official business after college, I started up two-day painting. I did a bunch of surveys and just door knocked and talked to a ton of different homeowners and just asked them a question about what types of businesses and what they would like. And two-day painting got a lot of good statements. People thought it was realistic, but yet a value to them. So I decided to start up two-day painting officially.
And are most of your jobs then two-day paint jobs?
We try as hard as we can, but a lot of them do take longer. We never rush a job or cut corners to get it done sooner, but we do work full continuous days, and we'll have a larger crew on the larger jobs until it's completed. So we do our best.
Dude, there are very few people I've ever talked to who have gone door to door doing market research before they started their painting company.
I never met anyone either.
Dude, have you always been this analytical? You've always taken that, like, I mean, that's an unbelievable thing. I love it.
Yeah, I've always been pretty analytical about my decisions. I've definitely been a risk taker in a lot of ways too. I've experimented and tested out a lot of different stuff, and some of it has done really well and some of it has completely failed. But you learn and you grow, and one of the reasons why we were able to grow so quickly was because of my risk taking, and some of them really turned out to be great ideas.
What's the size of the company today?
So we're about 4.5 million. We're hoping to get to about 6 million this year.
That's a pretty big jump. And you are where?
Wisconsin, Milwaukee area.
Milwaukee area. What's your average job size?
About $5,500.
So that you guys are performing a lot of paint jobs then.
A lot, yep.
To get to 4.5 million and to get to 6 million this year, that's a lot of. But you know all your numbers, right? You're a numbers guy. Mm-hmm. Have you? And from day one, that's how it's been.
Yeah. It's been. Everything I do is a mathematical equation. It seems like when I'm making decision or strategy, marketing, how many postcards are you going to send out? How much money you're going to spend? How many leads are they going to bring in each week? From a sales perspective, I think, measuring production and backlog, I think it all is a big numbers game, to be honest, in a lot of ways.
I love that. And I think that's why you're crushing the market, because most painters I talk to, they are not numbers guys. They're craftspeople, right? They love. Have you ever painted a house?
I have, yeah. Okay. I wouldn't say I'm a great painter. I'd probably pay myself about $17, $18 an hour. But I can do it. For the 2 hours I'm out there, I can keep up pretty well. But I haven't had to paint a house in at least 5 or 6 years. I haven't even touched a paintbrush, I think, since then.
How long have you been in business?
This is our 8th year right now with two-day painting, and I did it for a year in college as well.
Wow. So can you walk us through what it was like when you first started your company? How did it start, and sort of give us a little bit of the story?
Yeah, so I started in college, like I mentioned, did college pro for a year, did about 100 grand with them. Learned learned a lot of the basics from that. I graduated, and then I started up officially 2 Day Painting. I did about $250,000 my first year. I got almost all my sales just through knocking on doors and flyers and newspaper boxes, and had a 93 Plymouth that I was using with rusted on a wooden ladder rack, used equipment. I opened up a $10,000 credit card. I had zero money in my bank account after college, and I was able to cash flow on that $10,000 credit card, and grew it from there. After a year, the next year I did about $500,000. Then I jumped up to about $1.5 million the third year. That was a struggle figuring out, hiring on a bunch of sales reps, and probably took it a little too quick, a little too fast. Definitely learned some lessons. Still made money, but barely. I think I maybe made 40 or 50 grand that year running a $1.5 million business. But learned a ton from the experience, hired in the office staff, built a ton of systems, just did a ton of work in that year. And I was able to build on that foundation and become a lot more profitable and successful in the following years.
So year 3 was 1.5?
Yep.
What did year 4 look like?
That was a little bit under $3 million. And,
double sales.
Yep. In the last few years, I've been taking it a little easy and focusing more on efficiency, and tested out some new business ventures, and been traveling all around the world. I've visited over 40 countries in the last few years. And now I'm looking to really kind of put the pedal to the metal again and do some damage this year. I'm actually even starting up another branch in Charleston, South Carolina, to help, mostly to help keep the painters busy over the winter times, use as a recruitment tool. And, also I love the city, and to build a new company down here. So it'd be exciting trying to manage 2 companies from completely opposite ends of the U.S., but it should be fun. I'm excited for it.
And so you talk about building systems. Could you kind of give us an idea of what does that mean for you? What did it mean for you when you went from 1.5 to 3 million, and what happened in that year at 1.5? What were those systems that you built that allowed you to go to 3 the next year?
Built quite a lot of systems around the board. A lot of it was just, figuring out a sales process that works for other people, figuring out a production management system to be able to manage multiple people at once, developing a lot of, during that year, we had almost all employees. We didn't really start using subcontractors until about year 4, and now I have a mixed model between the 2 of them. So figuring out how to manage all that, create all those documents, create little systems for everything between interviews and, how do you do an interview, and what are the questions you ask them, and the steps to how do you properly, qualify a lead, or, how do you just about everything, just trying to document everything and be able to train everything to the point where I don't have to be there for any of the day-to-day. And right now, successfully, I'm actually in Charleston right now. I don't have any day-to-day responsibilities. I help out, as needed, as I, feel like I could be used. But all of my work is more of whatever I feel is most useful for the company at the moment.
God, that is special in our industry. That is fairly rare. So many questions. So can you walk me through what a potential client, like what the experience is from the time you get a phone call to the time the job is completed? I'm sure you have a bunch of systems in place. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the customer calls in off of one of our, we do a lot of marketing. I wish I had the social media that you had in your business. I'm very impressed with that. I do most of my marketing through direct mailers, or I have a lot of various mail type sources that I found very successful in my market. And I also, do Google AdWords and do a little bit on Facebook as well. So we do all these different marketing channels. They call in. Usually Evelyn or one of my other office staff will answer the phone, and they greet them and field out their information, talk about their job, and overall just really bubbly, energetic, friendly people in the office. And then they're essentially put it in our CRM system, sync it to our calendar, schedule an appointment for one of our sales team members. Right now we have 5 full-time estimators out in the field, and they're coordinate times with them. They do about 4 appointments a day on average, and then we follow up the day before with them, and we send them some emails before they get out there. The estimator goes out there, he greets the customer. What we do is set up call the night before. Then he goes out there, they greet the customer, they introduce himself. Then they start walking around the job. So we like to, kind of set the agenda in the beginning, go over, try to get both homeowners involved if they're not both involved already. And, tell them how the appointment's going to go. We tell them that the price will be good for 30 days. And if they have any questions or, let us know. We walk around the house with them. We go over, the scope of the job. We identify problems like failed caulk and peeling paint and rotting boards and all that good stuff. We find needs. We ask them questions like, have you ever hired a contractor in the past, and how did that experience go, and dig down deep into what their trigger points are and what their real needs are. Then once we're done kind of figuring out a solution for the customer and discussing that and the whole project, then we have a 16-page, actually 20-page booklet that we go over with them. And we have a customer guide, we call it, and we give that to every customer before we leave. And it goes over the 2-day difference, differentiating points for us, the different services we provide, different programs like Painting for a Purpose, where, we do a lot of charity work every year for nonprofit and low-income families. Color consultations, quality management walkthroughs, bunch of products, pictures, certificate of insurance. And, then at the end of that, we ask them, if everything looks good, would you want to, get on our schedule today? And that's what we, consider a trial close, just preparing them to possibly make a decision at the end of the appointment. Overall, we do our best to try to, book jobs when we're there, just because you have your most success when you're at the customer's home and you can handle objections and answer any questions while you're there. But, we're not a high pressure company by any means. We really do, want to take care of the customer and want them to make a good decision that's, for themselves. Then we go around and we take out measurements. I have a bunch of, basically spreadsheets that I created that have calculate everything they need to know. They just put in the measurements around the house, and it spells out all the price and hours and paint gallons needed, and all these different add-on options for when it's needed. Then we have a proposal template that they stick it in, and they just tweak that as needed. Then they add some pictures to it, walk up to the customer's home, and go over the proposal with them, present the price. And then, the big thing that I like to really, most of the sale is won throughout the first half of the presentation. They're either going to trust you or they're not. We like to ask questions in the beginning, like, would you trust us to do the job? Or after the customer guide, I should say. Is this the right, solution? Would you have it any other way? If they trust you and they like the solution, then it's bound to come down to price most of the time if they're not going to hire you. So you go over the proposal, you go into detail, okay, Mr. Customer, the total price to paint your house comes out to $8,000. How would you like to pay for the project when you decide to pay? And, they go, be like, oh, well, we'll just write a check, or we'll pay by credit card, or, we'll always mention that, we also offer financing, which is our most popular option. We mention it that way because customers will be ashamed to use financing if they really need it. So if you make it sound like everybody's doing it, they'd be much more comfortable admitting that they need financing. And you might get a few jobs that you might not have gotten otherwise. And then, we ask them for the job. Would you like to get on our schedule today? And they're either going to hopefully say yes, but obviously that's not always the case. Probably more than half the time that's not the case. And they're usually usually they give you some sort of excuse. Usually they know what they're going to do. They usually know if they're going to hire you or not at that point most of the time. And it usually they look at the price and they're thinking, okay, maybe they got a bid from another contractor that was cheaper. Maybe their neighbor got their house painted cheaper. Maybe they just thought it was going to be cheaper, or maybe there could be a lot of different reasons. But if they really trust you and they trust the solution that you're providing and they think everything else is in line and they don't hire you, it's probably because of price. So, you want to isolate that objection. So they're going to give you an excuse is what we call it. They're going to talk to they're going to say, I need to talk to my wife, or, I need to think about it, or I need to get other quotes. So although we don't want to pressure anyone, we want to isolate and find out if price is that objection so we can help help them understand the value that we're providing and possibly win the job. So, if they need to talk to their wife, great. Would you mind, trying to give her a call real quick, and that way I can answer any questions while I'm here. Especially if they wanted their project done, soon. Well, we can get it done along that time frame. You're looking to have it done in a month. We do have an opening, but that spot is going to get filled up. Do you mind giving her a call real quick and seeing, if she has any questions, or see if you want to take advantage of that spot? But odds are, if they say something and then they're going to isolate the objection to price most of the time, or I need to get other quotes or anything like that. Well, Mr. Customer, reason we, usually when people tell us that you need to get multiple quotes is because you're either not confident with us, not confident with our, service that we're providing, or you're unsure about our price. Is it any one of those three? They might say, well, it was a bit higher than I expected. So now you've isolated that price as the real objection. And now you can ask them, well, what were you thinking around? And maybe they say that, well, I was expecting it to be around $5,000. Okay. Why were you expecting that? And then they'll give you the reason for it. So my neighbor got their house painted for $5,000, or I got another quote for $5,000. Okay. Well, so that makes sense. When did your neighbor get their house painted? Oh, 2 years ago. One thing I noticed about your house is there is quite a bit of prep work that we discuss. There's a lot of filled caulk, a lot of peeling paint, and there is a lot of surface area on it. So naturally, and prices do go up every year. There's a shortage of labor in the trades right now. It's tough to find qualified tradesmen, and we got to pay our guys well if we want to keep the best talent. And paint prices go up every year as well. So and your house requires more work. So do you think that the service that we're offering is, worth $8,000? And you can help raise their value in their mind. And maybe you get them up to $7,000 with that comment. And then, you can keep on discussing it and until you get to a stopping point with the customer where, would you go ahead with us if we could, or what price would we need to get to in order for you to go ahead with us today? And they might say $7,000. So what we do is we have a 5% efficiency discount in our back pockets. We give every customer a great price up front, but we have a 5% efficiency discount. So we could, kind of throw them a bone if needed to try to book a job. And it also saves us a lot of time coming back. It saves us marketing costs because now, a lot of customers, you leave the house, you're never going to be able to book that job in the future. So if you're booking more work, you're spending less money on marketing, you're spending less time running out to different appointments, and you're saving quite a bit. So explain the efficiency discount to them, and that would take it down to about $7,600. And most customers at that point, when you meet them in the middle, they usually go ahead and get on your schedule. And if they don't, as a last second resort, you could use the right of rescission. Well, you do have 3 days, in order to cancel your contract, that's listed in there. And if they don't want to go with that, we just, very politely, we schedule follow-up time with them. So our goal is not to get kicked out of the door, call the cops on us, but at the same time, we want to be able to handle their real objections. And now that I isolated price as their objection, I have a chance to fight it. If I didn't do that, the customer would leave, they'd call up, their other quote that came out for $5,000. Maybe they're providing 1 coat of paint versus 2 coats. Maybe they're not using the same products, and now you had no chance to basically fight for your job. So So we go through the sales process, all that. We sign a contract with them. We do a weekly hug up until the job is started. One of the most complained about aspects of home improvements is lack of communication between when the job is booked and when the job is started. Most painters will basically ignore them until they're ready to get going. And then all of a sudden they're call up, 3 months after the job is booked and be like, hey, can we start tomorrow? Can we power wash your home tomorrow? And, the customer is left a little just, number one, they're nervous the whole time. Like, is this guy ever going to call me? Am I going to get my house painted? And even if you told them when you book the job, like it's going to be 3 months, they're still nervous. So we we politely follow up with them on a weekly basis and just let them know that we're thinking of them and that they're on the schedule for around this time frame, and we'll give them a better date when the time gets closer, and keep them communicated, with pretty well throughout the whole process. The job gets started. We send our power washer out there about a week ahead of time. We power wash their home. We set a date for them for the next week to get started with their project. We do the job. We have a quality manager that essentially, inspects all the jobs, and he's constantly hopping around between the various projects. We actually have 3 of them right now in the field. And their job is to make sure that our customers are happy, that our crews are following our systems, trying to get reviews at the end of the job, and just making sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible, as well as, working with the various crews and painters and working with them, training and developing them further at the same time. We communicate daily between each of the days that we're working on the job, obviously, clean up daily and invoice them, and then just, continue to reach out to them every couple months, usually by email, and we usually call twice a year. And and you'd be surprised at how much work you can get from your previous customer database. If they liked you the first time and they have future projects, they're going to contact you. And if they know of anyone, just by staying in front of them, now they remember, oh, that was 2 Day Painting that did the job. So many painters, we asked them who they used last time, and they're just like, I don't know. It was a guy. It was a guy in a company. I have no idea, because I've never even talked to the customer after the job was produced, which is just a shame in my opinion. So hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think you're on like so many things you said. They're not common in our industry, and like somebody said below, like it makes no sense why they're not. Like what you just described is not rocket science. It's called being professional. Mm-hmm. We expect that from every other company we do business with. But I often have talked about, I think the trades, we just have such a low bar that if we do what our last boss did and maybe do it a little bit better, we think that that's great. And, it's so refreshing to hear from the first time I ever talked to you, like how much you have thought about every aspect of the process is very impressive. Where did you learn all this stuff? You're constantly learning, right?
I am. Yeah. I read a lot in general. I've gone to a lot of PCA events, Brandon's Painting Academy events, constantly keeping in touch with what's going on in the different Facebook chat groups. And overall, I think I wouldn't say I learned that much from school. I learned a lot from school in how to become a better person in a way. And I was able to create a lot of these systems on my own by just kind of figuring out the logic of what makes sense. But overall, through going through all these conferences and reading all these books and understanding things, you just perfect things here and there. And you learn the more you network and develop relationships with guys like yourself, the more I can learn a ton from you. You can learn a ton from me. And you do that with 20 other painters around the nation. And all of a sudden, you really know what you're doing. Yeah.
How have you solved the labor issue? Like, I mean, obviously to do $4.5 million of painting this year, how many painters roughly did all that work?
So it varies quite a bit based upon the season. We have about 6 to 7 months of weather outside that we can actually paint outside. And then the other months, usually it starts getting cold in October and starts getting warmer again around April. So we're on the inside. And it's tough for us to have the same amount of demand on the inside. So we do produce most of our work during the exterior season of the year. We have a mixture of employees and subcontractors. Most of our people work pretty consistently with us for the most part, and they're highly trained, and we do a lot of vetting with them, and we do develop them and make sure that they're providing the levels of customer service and quality that we want. But we got to hire in a lot of people, so we're constantly recruiting, we're constantly hiring, we're constantly testing people out, interviewing them, putting them with, if it's an employee, putting them with one of our, lead painters and our quality managers and seeing how they do for the first few days. If they're a crew, subcontractor crew, and they meet all of our vetting, we put them on the easiest job we can possibly find. We have our quality manager there with them the whole time, and we have a backup plan ready to save the day in case they're a disaster. But yeah, we do quite a bit of recruiting. And one of the main reasons I'm starting the branch down in Charleston actually is because in Wisconsin, it's a major problem with keeping busy over the winter. Most painters cannot stay busy over the winter. We can keep about a third of our guys busy over the winter. And the other ones are they're used to only working during the warm months of the year, which is kind of sad, but it's common. So we're essentially providing an opportunity down here where we're providing rent, travel costs, everything that they need, and they can come down and stay as busy as they want to, work as much as they want to during the winter times to make sure that they can support their families and stay happy. And we're hoping that becomes a powerful recruitment and retention tool to help us really scale our operation in the future.
That's really cool. So you have systems for everything. You have pretty refined systems for the actual painting as well.
We do. Not nearly ear level, I'm sure. But we have different steps and budgets broken down per different aspects of the job. So, and every crew gets a budget on their job. So, this cabinet job is, this amount of time to spray the doors in our shop, this amount of time to do the boxes and prep, and the crew is expected to, we work with them, but they're expected to manage their job and hopefully come in under budget. We have different training systems for each person that comes in when it comes to, okay, how do you use a caulk gun, especially the brand new painters. And we test out a lot of our subcontractor crews that are supposed to be very experienced coming in. They're not always the case, but we test them out in a lot of different things. And if they pass, then, they're good to go. If they don't pass, they're not. We have different cleanup policies and tar policies, but I'm sure it's nowhere near your level on that aspect.
But it's far more systemized and written down. Well, first of all, I'm guessing everything you do is written down someplace.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. We're working on that right now on a daily basis. I just brought on a new partner, and she's doing all of those things. And because, we've been most of what we do is sort of, this is the way we do it. But is there like a piece of paper anywhere that has that whole process written down? Not really. I think, and that's a major issue for a lot of painters is, they're not running businesses. They're painting for a living. And I think there's a really big difference between that. And for a long time, I didn't understand. No, I think for a long time, it's overwhelming as a painter. The idea of it still does. When I hear you talk about this stuff, I'm overwhelmed and anxious, and I feel like I'm not good enough, and I'll never be able to do this, and all of these, because that's not what got me into painting, right? And so I think that there is this like really difficult environment out there with painting where a lot of guys are running businesses because they couldn't make any more money at their last employer, and so they're like, I have to go out on my own. And then we're going and competing with guys like you who came right out from the rip and started to run a business, and you spend like all of your time thinking about systems and processes, and you're up here in the clouds managing and building, where so many guys I think are like in the trenches and they can't look up to see what's going on. What would you say to a paint contractor that's in that situation? Like, what's the lead domino that would help somebody start to put systems in place?
Well, I think it first comes down to, strategizing where you want your business to be and what you want it to eventually work out to be. Do you want a $5 million company, or do you want a $500,000 company that you're only doing what you love in it? Figuring out where your vision is, and then it's mapping out the pieces to get there. Who do I need in place? What systems do I need in place? If I need someone else in place to do this, they're going to need well-documented systems to be able to train them in. I can't expect to hire rock star business managers or painters for every position in my company. I'm going to need my best sales reps are not painters. They're, just personable, good people, hardworking people that are, don't have that knowledge. You have to be able to teach them and train them that knowledge. So it's taking time away from the brush, and what you just feel like you have to, the 80 hours that you have to put into the day-to-day, and forcing yourself to focus some time on building systems. Write down a map, create an entire spreadsheet of just all the stuff that you want to do in your business. Prioritize the top handful that makes sense to you at the moment, and then work on getting those done. And force yourself to step away from the brush as much as possible. You may take a little bit of an income hit in year one without being on the brush as much, but years two onward, you're gonna thank yourself for doing it.
I love that. What do you think is the most important first system to have in place?
It depends on your business and your size and what you're looking to get out of. For example, if you love estimating jobs and you never want to go out of that, and you have that down to a way that no one else could do it the way you're doing it, but you can look at jobs and know what you do, and you're trying to build that, you don't need to build up a sales system, but if you're looking to have an office assistant come in, well, you need systems for them to be able to field calls for you and, schedule estimates and hopefully schedule crews as needed and whatever else that they're doing. So it's really variable based upon the size of the business and where your strengths are and where you want to go. For a business like mine that I don't want to be involved in the day-to-day, I need systems for literally everything in my business, or it's not gonna work out the way it should. So that's an individual question about what you need and to identify. I would think most businesses are probably looking for some sort of office help right away, so figuring out those admin systems.
Yeah, and I think that it's great to hear what you're saying, that it is going to cost you money in the short term, right? If you were painting every day, you're going to have to take a financial hit because there's not more hours in the day. And I love that idea of slowing down, taking some time away from production and it's investing, right? It's investing in the future. And little bit at a time, spending 2 hours this week and building some initial system.
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes sense. What is your admin like? So a lot of overhead goes into, like, most guys don't have. I would say most painters in the country don't have overhead as far as staff, right? It's all painters. Everyone. With a company of your size, what does that look like? What's the back end look like? You're telling me you have quality control guys, you have office people.
So everything we do, I actually have, we're a little bit more top heavy than most companies our size. We're building up people, we're developing people, and we're building systems to essentially take it to the next level year after year. So our office staff looks like this. I have my general manager, my right-hand guy, Eric. I don't know if you met him, but he's my integrator. I'm more the visionary. If you've ever read Traction, he's more the integrator. And, his job is to kind of make sure that the ship, especially in the office and production, and he oversees a lot of various tasks and to make sure that it runs smoothly while I can be down in Charleston enjoying life and starting up a business down here. So that's his role. We have A production manager whose full-time job is in the office doing scheduling and handling logistics and, all the production management, more of decision making in the office. We have Evelyn, who's she's been with us a while. She's our office manager, and she is the main person like on the phones and to generate reports and stuff like that. We have a another basically an admin assistant whose main job is to call and help us out with whatever we need. We have a finance assistant who does all the invoicing and job costing and stuff like that. We have two virtual positions. We have a full-time finance person whose main job is kind of overseeing the numbers and the trends and bookkeeping and handling all the weird taxes and stuff like that, questions that pop up. We have a follow-up and survey rep whose entire job is just calling, customers that our estimators couldn't book and trying to do surveys after the job. We have 3 quality managers in the field. We have 5 full-time sales reps. We have, and then a lot of, about 4 carpenters, a power washer, and some hybrid positions, and just a ton of painters after that.
So 15 people don't produce any actual painting.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
That's, that is, first of all, that's very scary for most people, right? Like you said, you like to take risks. I would imagine it was a lot of risk taking. It was a big risk to bring on. What was the first hire you had, admin wise or overhead wise?
I would say more of a field manager year 2, to kind of to oversee the whole production scheduling operation, so I could focus my time mostly on sales and R&D. And then we brought in, we got an office year 3, and that was when we got our first office staff, and she kind of oversaw all the phone calls and stuff like that and the details there. And then we kind of just had a mix between the field where between me and my general manager, who was with me since towards the latter part of year 1, we would handle the sales and the production scheduling and management, and she would handle the office side. And then we brought on like 3 sales reps the following year, and which that was a mistake, but it was a learning lesson. And brought on a couple office people too. So that year we kind of just jumped up. We hired a ton of people. We had a lot of turnover at the end of that year because it was a roller coaster for everybody. But at the same time, I think we ended up stronger because of it in the long run.
And so do you hire everybody in your company?
I hire all of the key office and sales positions. I leave the production management positions up to my production management team. So I think they relate a little bit better with a lot of the painters coming in, and they're the ones that are consistently working with them, where I can more oversee the office. I mostly handle the sales and marketing more than anything else. My general manager mostly handles, production, overseeing the field and the office. And my production management team focuses more on the actual labor itself.
So you talked about it a little bit earlier, but I'd like to go deeper into marketing first, and then we'll go into the sales deeper. But what does good marketing look like to you, and what does your marketing look like?
So my biggest resource is direct mail, and I have a system where I target just homes that are a certain home value. So in my area, $250,000 home is not a bad home. That could be a nice suburban home. So I'll target homes that are $250,000 plus, just single family homes, owner occupied. You can target by year and other stuff if you want to as well. And I'll target based upon the zip codes that I like working in the best. Typically the suburban type areas that are, I try to stay away from a lot of the old areas unless I have to because just of lead. But by focusing on the upper end of the market, you can get a lot of the best clients, and you don't get as much you get a better return on your investment. For a lot of people, when it comes to direct mail, they just send it out to everyone, and then they are confused why it doesn't produce a great return on investment, or they put it in a magazine or a newspaper where most people are not reading through it actively every day to find your ad in the middle there. a lot of marketing it's building a brand and figuring out what's working, testing it and developing it. For mail, I'll test out all these zip codes. I'll analyze the response rates of each zip code. I'll narrow it down. I'll spend more money on the ones that are working well, less money on the ones that aren't. And now all of a sudden, 5 years later, last year I only spent 1.5% on marketing. Actually, it was my budget, which I was pretty happy about. We also didn't grow as much with COVID. We were nervous about how the year was going to go, so we didn't try to scale as much last year. But you figure out these systems, you fine tune them, and they just work. So I know exactly how many. I look at our lead flow and how many estimates are in the calendar, how far we are backed out, and I'll calculate how many postcards we need to send each week, and it just goes through, and the whole thing is pretty systemized. And that's the bulk of my marketing, just because even though I'm one of the larger businesses in Wisconsin, I still have less than 1% market share of residential painting contractors. There's so much work to be had. I could grow to a $20 million company within just my market, just doing painting services. And I still wouldn't even hit the possible threshold of needing to expand in other areas. I'm expanding more from a recruitment and retention purpose and a personal life decision. But most painters don't realize that, there is a lot of opportunity. So I need to get into a lot more Instagram and start building the ad in my social media accounts. And I see the value there. But for me, I'm not even covering close to my direct mail marketing list, as often as I need to. It's producing a massive return on investment. And I haven't even kind of touched the surface of what that one lead source could bring in. So that's my main effort. And then I do a lot of other little stuff as well. I've negotiated a lot of pay for performance type programs with various vendors, especially over the winter. So you can figure out that I'm just going to pay per lead that comes in, or X amount of sales. You negotiate that, and now all of a sudden you have a winter marketing channel that's working for you. The vendor's happy, and you're guaranteed not to lose money in a time where it's tough to get leads.
What is that exactly that you just described? I think that went over a lot of people's heads.
So one of the pay for performance programs that I do, it's there's a major newspaper within my area, and they I essentially have an ad every single day in there. There's about 150,000 subscribers in there. We're somewhere in that newspaper every day, and I only pay on a percentage of sales that I get from it. So I'll literally report my book jobs to them on a monthly basis. They're calculated out, how many that call their call tracking number that resulted in a job, and I'll pay them a percentage of sales. Other programs, that I've done, could be a dollar amount per lead. I'll pay you $100 per lead. You can negotiate to them. They almost never just offer you this right away. You have to, bargain with them a little bit, show them the value and get them to test out the program. And if it's working for them, you can find a middle ground where now all of a sudden you have marketing channels that are guaranteed not to lose.
That's so interesting. So there's a different number than your actual phone number in the ad, so they can track who calls. And then based off of that phone number, you can go, the person at that phone number bought this paint job.
Yep.
Like, honest. Is it a little bit of just an honesty trust thing where you?
A little bit. If you could base it off of calls, all these calls are recorded and they can send you over detailed spreadsheets, which is awesome. So I listen to all these calls and you could be like, okay, well, this person wasn't a real customer. This person wasn't. So the lead tracking programs are a little bit more, easy to manage. But the sales, it's kind of an honesty thing. But, if you don't report the right amount of sales, it might cut your program eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting. And it's like, is it 9% that you pay of total sales?
It depends on the program. This one I pay 12% during the winter months. There's a lot of details with the program. But if that's something anyone is interested in, they could reach out to me. I'm not trying to sell anything here or anything like that. But I can connect you with their company. And if they have a major publication in your area, they could probably offer you the same program.
Yeah. What do you roughly do with that program here? Like, how much are you paying them? What, that 12% of sales, roughly, what are they making on that?
It's usually working out to be about $3,000 to $6,000 a month or so.
So they love you because you're giving them ad revenue at a newspaper, which is probably hard to come by these days. And you love them because you're getting predictable, essentially no risk ads.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's a filler for them, so even though I'm in there every day, they fill it in wherever it needs to. They don't have to have, are committed to it. So you can find these win-win scenarios with various companies where the opportunity cost is worth doing business with you, even if they're taking a risk. I've also done the program with Money Mailer. I don't know. It's a decent, franchise. They're in a lot of areas. And there are certain companies that do a pay-per-click and lead generation. They guarantee a certain amount of lead cost. There's a lot of different ways that you can figure out a win-win program for them, or some sort of a test. A lot of them will test it on a 2-month basis, 2 or 3 month basis. And if you both end up winning enough off of it, it's worth it for a lot of vendors.
That's so interesting because I think everybody's like going to Google and paying per click, and people are going to like Home Advisor and paying for leads. And arguably that's a crowded. What are your thoughts on that? Do you do that as well?
I'm not a Home Advisor fan, and to be honest, I do pay-per-click and I see value in it, but I'm not a huge pay-per-click fan. I've found that the lead quality with Home Advisor and any of those lead generation sites tend to be lower, and they tend to be a lot of customers wanting to price shop a lot of different homeowners. The customer put it in, they get called by 4 contractors right away. It'll be tough to get a hold of a lot of them, and we just had very low closing ratios with those jobs. And the reason why I don't like Home Advisor and pay-per-click as much is you're not building a brand with it. Any other form of marketing, I sent out 100,000 flyers. There's 100,000 people, or at least a decent amount of people that at least saw your name before they threw it in the garbage. With Home Advisor and pay-per-click, you're only paying for the people who are actively clicking on your link and finding that. So you're not building a brand, you're not creating anything with it. Now, eventually, when I send postcards out constantly over and over again, I'm getting the return of investment I need. But now everyone is seeing my name time after time, year after year, in a lot of different places. And now they start to trust you. Now you start building a higher response rate. You start building a brand awareness. People, they don't even ask us for referrals from customers. Like, I can't remember the last time anyone's even asked for a referral because they see all the Google reviews. They see us all over the place. They trust us that we're a legitimate, reputable company, and it's mostly a price decision at that point. So that's why I like any type of media that you can essentially just get in front of people quite a bit, as long as you're getting the same return on investment. You don't want to just brand just to brand, in my opinion, in most cases, especially as a painting contractor. But you can get the return on investment you need. I'd rather do that than get the same return on investment on pay-per-click, as an example.
Well, we're going to need to talk after this because social media is the greatest way to be in front of people. Once somebody agrees to follow me, I get to talk to them every single day, for free.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of power. I decided to talk to you about integrating that into what you're doing because, boy, the ROI on that, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm definitely taking steps to try to improve that this year as well. But yeah, it's powerful. Like you said, you have all these followers. You built something with social media where now you can have essentially free marketing channels, or close to free for a long time. That's an impressive business value that you have. So I'm hoping to build that as well, versus always having to pay for leads. And Facebook, go ahead.
The nice thing about this is it's exponential growth, right? It's slow, and then with what I found is eventually you get the muscle down where you figure out the right type of content out, and the network effect is happening more and more and more, and you're spreading. And the long game in this is it's not linear anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which, for me, that's why I like it so much, is I feel like every time I spend some time here, it's paying off more each time. Each day I spend the same amount of time, it's a little bigger payoff each time, which is huge. So, but I love what you're talking about with because that's what social media is for me, putting your brand in front of people over and over again and building the trust. I was going to ask, how many Google reviews do you guys have?
I think like 160 or so, 170. We need to get that. We're going to get that up to 400 this year is my goal. We'll see if I can do it, or at least 300.
You got, doesn't Nick May have like 600?
I don't know, but that's impressive to get 600.
You guys, you're doing so much. I mean, I guess you're similar, but you're doing 3 times his volume. You got to catch him in Google reviews.
Oh yeah. I'll catch him. Give me 2 years.
Together to see which one of you guys can get the most next year.
We started implementing a program for quality managers and our crews where everyone can get bonus based off of a good review. So we're hoping that, this program is starting to work already, but we're hoping that once we get all these jobs done this summer, that it's going to really kick off to, we're very highly motivating our quality managers where they can make massive bonuses if they can generate a lot of reviews this year.
So sorry, go ahead. What'd you say?
Oh, it's an investment.
Yeah. So if I were to get a newspaper in Milwaukee, Wisconsin tomorrow, what does the ad look like? What does it say?
It's going to have our company, and some, nice pictures and stuff, our services, our contact info. As far as our promotions go, we're actually just started testing out a new promotions game. So I'm curious how it's going to go. We have 4 different options for the customers. One is 15% off. One is a free second coat of paint. One is 2 years of no interest or payments. And one is $39.95 kitchen cabinet repainting. Meant for a smaller, more entry kitchen until it, goes up with if there's over a certain amount of parts. But we're hoping that with these specials that we can get the 4 main types of buyers. You got the price buyers, you have the financing buyers, you have the value buyers, and most of our customers are going to go into that free second coat category. Is going to be the best offer. And then we have the cabinet people. So we'll see how it goes. They cannot be combined, but I'm excited for it. I think it'll be effective.
So you have an ad that says all 4 of those things in one ad.
It does, and it actually looks pretty attractive as well. It doesn't look too confusing. I was worried about that.
Yeah, I would have been too. Man, I'm going to have to subscribe to the Milwaukee newspaper. Daily 2-day paint ad.
Mm-hmm.
So like all this stuff, you've done a lot of A/B testing to get there.
Yep, we have, especially with mail, with testing out different areas and zones and different type of promotions and different. We tried like free paint upgrades and we tried some other stuff, but overall though, a lot of the A/B testing has been to the market, and who we're doing, and that has been very effective for us. We've done a lot of we tested out a ton of different marketing avenues like geofencing and emails and a lot of other types of things too, and a lot of them have been effective to a point, but we've just honed in on our best return on investment sites that are also building a brand. So that's why we're personally focusing on direct mail, but most companies should have a good marketing mix between everything.
Yeah, and I mean, the big thing that resonates with me here is, as a you have to be out of the field to be doing this kind of stuff, right? To be figuring out which zip code and what word should be on a mailer. You can't be painting. It's going to be really tough to be painting that morning and then stopping at lunch and going to figure out what zip code to send your direct mail to. Mm-hmm. And this whole thing it feels very, very, again, exponential growthy, where it's very, very slow build, putting all these things in place. Because like tomorrow I could put a million direct mailers out and I could book a bunch of work even, but I don't have the ability on the back end now to execute that work. So it kind of all has to go together, right?
Yeah, you got to balance every part. If you hire too many sales reps, they're not going to be happy. They're not going to make the money that they want because you can't produce the work. If you have too many painters but not enough sales reps, you're most people don't have that problem, luckily. If you market too heavy, now you just spent a ton of money on marketing and you can't field all the leads. If you're booked out too far, now you're going to lose a lot of customers and your sales and marketing is going to be a lot less effective. You kind of got to balance them all. So we have our goals for each section. Okay, we want to stay, ideally this far out, in our busy season. We want to, we want to balance everything. We want to keep all of our estimators busy, but not be too far backed up where we can't service customers for 3 weeks. We want to, it's all kind of a big math equation, in my opinion, but you figure out what works for you and you figure out how you can grow it. And we scale everything to match production. So we try to scale production as much as possible where we can do in a sustainable quality manner. And then we scale up sales and marketing to match it.
So you find that's the limiting factor for you?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which makes sense because you can pay for another 100,000 mailers for just more money. You can't go double your workforce tomorrow with more money.
Yep, exactly.
That's interesting. I think that all of this stuff, like, you make it sound so easy in some way, right? To the painter who's 9 years into him and maybe 2 people, and he's struggling to get by and he's feeling like this isn't working out. Going from that spot to starting to build a business, I'm in it right now, and it's a completely different mindset, right? Everything you're talking about has a long game payoff. It's not like I put paint on a brush and I cut a line and now that line is straight and beautiful. It's I put paint on that brush and then I had to wait, however long. There's a lag time before your efforts pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always been able to? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that, right? When your efforts don't pay off right away, it's hard to keep putting the effort in. Is that something that you've experienced? Is that easy for you to see the long game? What are your thoughts on that?
I've always been more of a long game person. I've always been one that's been trying to build something from scratch, and I haven't been a good painter, so it's been very easy for me to get off of the brush. In fact, if I don't absolutely have to be on the brush anywhere in my career, I was not on it. So for me, that's where my focus has been. It's all been on development and all that stuff. And it does take time. And in the beginning, you're going to put a lot of work in. That's not going to pay off for, some time to come. But you got to do if you want to build your business. If you want to run the same size business the rest of your life and do the exact same thing, and that's what you're happy with, by all means, there's no need to create a bunch of useless systems that you're never going to put anyone in place. But if you're trying to build something, you got to do it. The only way you can get up to a business of my scale is by putting these systems in place and figuring out these various aspects and making it work. So I think the first step is a strategy session for, especially for the small contractor. Think about where you want to go. How much money do you want to make a year? What do you want your life to look like? What kind of tasks do you want to be doing? Do you love painting, but you're just trying to make an extra 30 grand a year? Or do you want to get out of the brush? Or do you want to own a painting business that is essentially doesn't need you to be involved? Do you want to have a business that you could literally just have as an investment, like a real estate investment, and never have to even touch it? You got to figure that out, and then you could put the pieces in place. I definitely recommend, obviously, consulting, more experienced painters or different chat rooms, listening to painters that, have some good experience and absolutely know what they're doing. You can get a lot of bad advice quickly. But once you figure out that strategy and what you want your life to look like, then you can essentially reverse the equation and figure out how to get there. And so that's what I recommend the small painter to do.
That's great advice. I think that far too often in this world, it's such a, this like social media, phone, like stopping to step back and see things from above and go, what do I really want? And what am I really good at? And like, I don't know if that happens as much as it should these days.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think that you and would you say that you do that fairly frequently?
I do, yeah. I'm constantly analyzing, where I need to be and what I want to do, and I spend a lot of time listening to audiobooks. And if I want to get better at emotional intelligence, I'll buy a book on emotional intelligence or the psychology of selling or habits or whatever I want to learn about. And every morning, I try to work out every morning if I can, and I'll work out for an hour or 2 hours, and I'll just be listening to an audiobook the entire time. And then, just constantly learning and developing your skills. Never get to the place where you're complacent with where you're at. As long as you want to achieve something else, figure out how to get there, and becoming a better person is the best way to get there.
I love it. And it's taking that time to get out of the minutia of the day just a little bit and spend a little bit of time on doing something that's going to pay off later.
Mm-hmm.
Planting seed. Like, plant the seed anytime you possibly can. I know sometimes you have to tend to the crop and you have to water it up, but you want to be. I'm always trying to plant seeds anytime I possibly can. So you have a business. You have a actual painting business in that you could sell your business tomorrow, correct?
Well, it might take a little time to find a buyer, but I could. My business would be very sellable comparative to most painting businesses out there.
Yeah. Is that something that you have any plans to do anytime soon?
I don't right now. A painting business is usually in the very beginning, it's not worth much, for the owner operator businesses, where the owner operator is dependent upon the business being successful, where someone else can't just come in and take that investment over or make that happen. It's really worth your tools and maybe your customer list. Once you get to a point where your business is like mine, where somebody could come in and they wouldn't need me at all in the business and they could run a successful painting business, then it's starting to get worth something. But it's still worth my guess is about a 3 to 4 times multiple on profits. So if I can run it every year, and 3 years, I can essentially double my revenue, my investment every 3 years, not even accounting for the growth. It's a much stronger investment, keeping the business and continuing to invest into it and make it successful, and build on top of it, like, the Charleston branch that I'm doing, or maybe add another service or add another market, or just continue to grow your operation, with where you're at. So that's what I'm planning on doing. Businesses that get to the point where they're, $10+ million, that have a strong brand and have a real strong machine, those businesses can be worth quite a bit more than 3 to 4 times multiple. So
let's talk about profit margins and numbers and all of those things. What are your thoughts on that stuff? Give us a rundown of goals, markers, all those types of things.
Yeah, so my particular business, my goals, I try to, if I can, I try to keep gross margins at about 45% a job for job cost. So which means I have a 55% gross profit. Last year, accounting for that plus a little bit of warranty work, it ended up being right around that 50% mark. Then after that, we have sales commissions. So, we pay about 10% on average per job. So that takes us to about 60% of the job cost. Marketing last year was only 1.5%, but that's unusual. I'm expecting more around 5%. So now we're at about 65% of the job. And all of these numbers too, you're trying to figure out how to make them smoother and smoother. Negotiate with your paint rep, if you think that you're not getting, good pricing deals. Figure out how to negotiate with your marketing vendor, figure out ways to make your painting crews more efficient, and more profitable, your customers happier. All these little aspects can improve these margins. But now I'm looking at about 65% with marketing. And now we have overhead, which, we're looking at about 15% as a company for all their related overhead. Those 15 staff positions and our rent and everything else that we have. So, I'm looking at about a net profit of about 20% of my business at the end of the day. I think that's where business owners should target. I think that depending on the business that you're in, some businesses can be 30% more, or higher, especially if they're, you know, uh, in a really wealthy market maybe, and they have really strong systems, or they have a customer list and they don't have those marketing costs anymore. Um, or if they're doing a lot of, and that doesn't count my own salary too. So my own salary is on top of that. But I think 20% is kind of the benchmark. I think most painting companies are doing very good if they're hitting that 15% mark. And I think that's what most painting companies strive for. But if you really work on getting more efficient and having good processes throughout that whole way, 20% to 25% is completely realistic.
And that's in years where you're not growing. Go from 4.5 to 6, you're still trying to keep a 20% net?
We are, correct. So last year, even though we didn't grow much, we also still had a lot of overhead for our size because we were planning on growing. We got a bigger office, we invested in a lot of other stuff, and we just decided to play it smooth a little bit, and not go through the extra efforts of hiring on new sales reps or anything like that. But I'm hoping to hit that 20% mark this year at $6 million. So wish me luck.
Good luck, man. That's, that it's something else to think about, $1.2 million of profit after you pay yourself. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I think that's the carrot at the end of all of that time spent doing things that don't pay off right away.
Yep.
Right. And it's got me, just talking about it gets me more excited to want to go do it because it's painful. Like I want to talk about how to make paint look really nice. I want to talk about sanders and grits, and that's what I naturally like. I got into this business as a painter, but now I want to run a business because I want to have $1.2 million worth of profit, right? How does one go about that? Well, it's awesome to hear this. Like, this is the way, right? It's through building systems and spending a bunch of time doing stuff that day when you go home at the end of the day, it may not feel like you did anything, right? It's very different than like, I painted that wall and it looks awesome. Mm-hmm. That's the payoff. So I have so many questions for it, but I want now. So we did the marketing thing. You've spent more time than most thinking about sales, and we've talked about this before. And when I talk to you and we talked to Jason Phillips, and I was in a conversation with you and Jason Phillips talking about sales, and I feel like a kindergartner. It was an unbelievable thing. But tell me, let's talk about sales, because you don't get any of the $6 million worth of revenue without closing a sale. So what are your thoughts on sales in general? And then we can get into specifics.
So, a big part of it is, hiring a good sales team, training, developing a good sales team that can get you to that level. If you are at the level to have an estimator at that point. So there's a lot of science behind hiring an estimator, making sure that they're both assertive enough, personable enough, have the right skill sets. You can work with guys like Art Snarzik on, stuff like that. And having a great training program. So we have about a 4 to 6 week training program that's very hands-on for our sales reps the entire time. We're spending a week in the classroom with them, focusing on just knowledge and practice estimating pictures and going over our sales. We have a 9-page sales script that we make them all memorize. And they just role play over and over again until they get to the point where they're, got it down. And then we go out and we practice bidding a bunch of houses, and we see different jobs that are going on in progress. And then by the time a week and a half to 2 weeks is there, then we start actually getting into the field doing estimates. So we have them watch us for usually about 2 to 4 days each, where they just ride along with me or my general manager Eric, and they just observe us just book a bunch of jobs. Then after that, we watch and we coach them for, the next 2 to 3 weeks after that. And we just ride along with them as much as we possibly can and sit back and watch. It's painful sometimes in the beginning, but you just sit back and you observe and you give them coaching hints and they get better the next time. And the big thing about sales is not necessarily being a super smooth talker or anything like that. You're not trying to manipulate anyone into buying anything. I walked away from a lot of jobs where I didn't think we were the best solution for them. And I would tell them that straight up. If I think their siding is questionable or there's issues with that, there might be a class action lawsuit against Certainty or Hardy Plank Siding, and I would recommend going that route if it's bad. But the big thing is to build trust with the customer. Make sure that the likable part is important, but customers don't want a friend when you're going there. So many people focus on building rapport, and then they go in there and they spend 20 minutes just, chit-chatting about their boat or their dog. Well, the customer is just trying to be polite and is like kind of going crazy in his head, just being like, I just want my paint quote, I don't need a friend right now. They want to trust you as a professional, as an expert in their field. So building that trust, really finding a great solution for them, educating them why this product is a better choice for them, going into the science a bit if you can, going into the details about how we're going to caulk that, or how we're going to scrape that paint, or what kind of primer we're going to use, and why this. We sell a lot of peel bonding primer, and I like that product personally on exterior cedar houses, and why that's the best solution for them. Why our cabinet process is going to be better than some guy who's going to go in there and just roll on the top of the cabinets, and what we're going to do for that. So you want to be the trustworthy, you want to be the expert, find the great custom solution. And so many painters are focused on cutting the price. They're figuring, well, if I can get away with one coat here, I can help get the job, or if I can, get away with this cheaper level of paint, maybe I'll win it over that other person. Most customers, not all of them, most of them are hiring off of value and not price. They're looking for you to prove to them why yours is the best investment for their home. So even though we're more expensive than other competitors in our market, we're going to demonstrate why we're going to be a good experience for them. They're not going to have to worry about us showing up, or doing the job, or running away with their deposit, or not communicating with them, or having felons on the job site, or anything else that people are worried about. They're going to have a good experience with us. We have strong systems to make sure that happens. We have quality control metrics. We're going to do the job correctly. It's going to last as long as it possibly can. And once they build that trust in that custom solution, then at that point, it should be about price. For most customers, either A, you tell them what the price is and they're like, I love it, let's go ahead with it. If you did a really good job, that happens quite a bit. But if not, it's going that extra step. So many painters, they either won't give the proposal the day of the estimate, which I think is absurd. Anyone watching this, figure out how to get that quote out there while you're there. It'll save you a lot of time as well. Or they're just the customer will be like, okay, I need to think about it. And then 99% of people will just be like, okay, great, give me a call. And they're expected, maybe they'll follow up with them once, maybe twice, maybe they'll never follow up. But the point of it is they're going to just walk away from that customer, and they're not going to try to figure out what's going wrong and actually earn their business. The customer is going to seem polite. They might walk out thinking, oh yeah, they're going to give me a call tomorrow, I got this. But really in the back of their mind, they're just being polite to you. And then now they know that, okay, they're going to go with Joe down the street who was half the price. You either A, didn't demonstrate your value enough where they trust you to be worth double the price of that other painter, or B, you never had a chance to fight for your value. So that's where, before I went into the raising the bar and how to handle those different objections and those expectations. But just by taking that extra step and not, just leaving right away, just asking them simple questions, great, what do you need to think about? If they say they need to think about it, I just need to get another few other quotes. So why do you need to do this? Just following up with a few of those questions and hopefully figuring out how to isolate what their true objection is. And And follow-up is important. If you don't get the job at the end of so many painters, they don't follow up. Follow up the next day. We try to follow up the very next day with every single one of our appointments if we can. After about a week, it goes to our follow-up rep. So our estimator will follow up, 1 to 3 times in the first week with the customer. And after that, then we'll just call them every week from our follow-up rep. And we're consistently just be in touch with them. And a lot of times people just need a little bit more time. And now all of a sudden you want the job more. If you were neck and neck with Joe down the street, but you're constantly following up and wanting to earn the business, most customers will give you the business. It's just a human thing to do. So if you can improve your sales, that's one of the biggest things you can change about your business and your success and your money. If you can get your sales ratio up from 20% to 40% or 40 to 80 or whatever makes sense in your business, you can spend half as much time estimating houses to get the same amount of work, free up a lot of your time, spend half as much on marketing, have the best customers. You can be choosier with them, and overall just benefit your business a lot.
I love the idea of giving pricing on the spot. It's something that we do almost all the time now. I believe in it strongly. I've seen the same experience that you have. I know as a buyer in my own life, I don't want to wait a week to find out how much this thing's going to cost that I want to buy. That's infuriating. And
Same.
Yet I've done it to dozens and dozens of clients over the years where I might not get back to them for 3 weeks, and then you get them the price.
Mm-hmm.
And when they say yes, it's like, okay, could I have sold that job for 5% more if I gave them that price the day of? I think so, right? Or they don't say yes, and then I didn't win the job. But if nothing else, I like to just think, all right, I would rather, and so I don't have spreadsheets and numbers because everything I do is like viciously custom. But I can walk through a job site for 20, 30 minutes, and I can end up with a price. And is that price as precise as if I went home and I poured over numbers and pictures and did every single little thing out and gave them a super precise number a week later? No, it's not. But I think that if I lean on the high side and I'm 5% more, but I gave them the price that day, for me, that's been a big game changer. And are you printing out? I saw Slack commented on here. Are you printing out that estimate, or are you showing them on an iPad or something?
So we're working on finding printers that don't freeze up in the winters. I know they're out there. I have a few recommendations that we're testing out this spring. We've had a ridiculous amount of printer issues from the mobile ones, but that's just an excuse on my end. I need to do that. But we do give them a copy of a customer guide. We email them it right away, and we put one in the mail as well every time after we don't get the job right away. Or if we do, we always mail them a copy with a nice follow-up letter, and so they get a copy. But we need to start being better at printing on the spot.
So what I'm understanding from this is hiring two-day painting feels very much like doing business with most of the other businesses a client will deal with on a daily basis, right? You go anywhere and you're going to get a very systematized sales process, a very systematized paperwork, follow-up, all of these things, right? It's just standard in so many businesses. And it's not standard for no reason. And I can't help but be amazed at how low the bar is in our industry.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
It's crazy.
But it makes it easier for us to compete. The ones who take an effort and to work on their business and to fix these things, we stand out above the rest. And you can build a sustainable, long-lasting business without needing to be the smartest person in the world or have a ton of money. The painting business is an amazing opportunity that most people don't understand. And there is a lot of potential for anyone. You just got to figure out these little pieces, put them together, and you can run a very sustainable business.
Yeah, I think that even what you said, follow-up, like I get annoyed by a follow-up. No, let's say this. I would say to you, I get annoyed by follow-up,
Mhm.
right? And I think that too often we think like that. You can say to me, well, I have data that suggests whether or not anyone's saying they're annoyed or not, we sell more paint jobs when we follow up. And
Oh,
to me, that's what I love about your approach is you're taking the gut and the personal experience and this subjectivity, and you're like, no, dude, I have data right here.
and honestly, most people that are annoyed, it's either because um, they decided they aren't going to hire you and they just don't want to go through the effort of telling you, no. So who cares if a couple people get annoyed every now and then, in my opinion, they can tell us and we'll stop calling them. Uh, but for the most part, most people want to hear from you. Most people are polite. If you're doing it too much, like you're calling them every single day or something, or you're just getting on their nerves about it, just respect their time. The first week, call them a couple times, call them after that, and it works out very well. We would not get nearly as much business if we didn't follow up strongly.
It's amazing, and it feels like you're doing business with when there's this because you are right, and there are systems in place, and it's so different from what I mean. A lot of what I do, we're working to get there. I think that I mean I love it. I love all of it. I want to do more of it. So tell me about your other purposes that you're looking to, and you're building out other businesses, right? Like didn't you do a roof thing? How's the roof thing going?
That was not a success. I, um, I tested out a new technology, and the market just isn't adapting as quickly as I wanted it to. Um, so sometimes that was probably one of my biggest failures, I would say. But you learn, you test it out, and some things really stick and others don't. But the big thing is not being afraid of things not sticking. You can't live your entire life being afraid not to take any chances or make any real moves in your business or your personal life. And you're never going to make progress. You got to take some risks. So we'll see how I invest in some real estate as well. I do some direct mail management more as a side hobby. And then the Charleston is my other main business.
I love that, man. I appreciate you sharing that because that is the truth. Like you don't find success. Like people who are successful didn't just try one thing, get lucky, and end up there, right? You've probably made hundreds of mistakes, but the key is try to learn from it. And what's the biggest takeaway that you have from that?
From that mistake, I'm sorry, you broke up there.
What would you do different next time?
I would have taken it a little slower, and tested it a little bit more cautiously. I'm 30 years old right now, so I tend to, sometimes go, ball to the wall right away. So I need to, I'm definitely learning to be a little bit more patient in my experiments, and I'm sure that'll pay off a lot in the future.
And when you first started, like you didn't have anything, so you were doing smaller experiments, right? You found some success. You have some money in the bank. Your experiments started to get bigger.
Yep.
That was a really large experiment, right? I can't remember what you told me, but you invested. Was it? I mean, you don't have to say if you don't want to, but
About $250,000. So,
I wanted you to say that because I think that's the point here. Is that's entrepreneurship. That's running a business, right? The only way that you're going to make $1.2 million in profit next year, if that happens, is by also being the guy who could lose $250,000 on an experiment.
mm-hmm.
I think they go hand in hand. You don't. I think it's really hard to get one without the other.
It is, yeah. And I'm lucky to the fact that I could have that bad of an experiment and not really affect me that much, and still have a killer year and not affect my personal life at all. Um, so everything so I definitely need to be more cautious in the future, but you got to be able to take some risks. If you think you have a good opportunity, you think it's a good play, building that business, having those systems where I can step away from 2-day painting and focus on a different investment a little bit and take those chances is how you really become a successful entrepreneur, in my opinion.
Yeah. And let's put it into perspective in scale. I mean, what, 6-7 years ago, you were doing, a tenth of that. So if you were doing 450,000, a $25,000 like learning lesson isn't the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You made $25,000 mistakes at $450,000 in revenue that helped you get to 4.5 million in revenue. So good for you for trying, and thank you for sharing that, because I think it's easy for people to be like, oh, guy's just like, I don't know, he's different than me. He's just doing all this stuff. It's like, no, I think you have a great head. I love the approach of, taking risks, trying, and being analytical. I don't think painters do that. I know I don't. Awesome, man. Let's see, what else I want to talk to you about. I mean, this just to be able to hear you talk about the sales process and how much you guys have thought about it. Oh, I know what I want to ask you about. So you said that they have to memorize a script. You've pretty much thought about every word that goes into the sales process. Is that right?
Yep, a lot of science behind it as well. Terminology and stuff like that. And, we have different scenarios for everything. A customer asks you this question. How do you explain this situation to them? So yeah, it's pretty mapped out. It can be a little bit overwhelming at first for a new person coming in, that's for sure. But we have our kind of fundamental stuff, and we have our different questions and scenarios, and eventually they learn it all. They memorize it, they practice it. We coach them. We make sure that they're following it as closely as possible in the beginning. Once they become more experienced and more veterans, they can start adapting a little bit more. But it works out very well. And a lot of the most successful home improvement businesses in the U.S., like far, far larger than me, they use a similar type of system where they have the script, they have everything like that. And
so I remember talking to Jason. So there are times in the sales process where you will talk about dollars. Well, can you give me some of the examples of some of like the really nitty gritty, like terminology things that you're using?
There's different facts out there, like according to a Harvard joint study, about a third of home improvement projects in the U.S. are hired to fix up another contractor's faulty workmanship. The Better Business Bureau, home improvements is, one of the most complained about industries according to the Better Business Bureau, and painting is definitely up there. When I looked a while ago, I think it was at the top of the list of most complained about industries, to be honest. And there's a lot of, so I wouldn't say, there's not like there's anything rocket science about this process. It's not like there's any magic words or magic bullet that we're doing differently. We're just making sure to cover all the bases, that could be important to someone. So, we, without doing too much. So we make sure that they trust us, that they have the right solution, that we cover all the important stuff that we need to cover on the estimate. We ask them for their needs and we dig down deep. I recommend probing. Most people don't even ask them these questions, but when you ask them, have you ever hired a contractor before? Most people would say that, oh yeah, I did. Well, how did that experience go? Oh, it went well. What did you particularly like about it? What did you not like about it? Was there anything that they could have done better? Dig down deep until you really find out what they're looking for. And then, Yeah, so I mean, our whole sales process, it usually goes about 90 minutes to 2 hours by the time we're done on average, per appointment. But that's getting them numbers too, and that's measuring and typing up the proposal as well. But we usually spend, 30 to 45 minutes with the customer before we even start doing measurements. And that's the most important part of it.
See, that's what you just said, I think just blew a bunch of painters' minds.
Mm-hmm.
And it's brilliant. I mean, what most guys are going, client walks them in the house. They say, "Hi, Ms. Jones. Hi. What do you want done?" They say this, this, and this. They go, "Okay." And maybe they ask 2 questions, and then they see you later, and then I'll get you an estimate in a week. And then they're wondering why they painting won the job.
Mm-hmm.
So are you, when you were scheduling the estimate, are you saying, do you do ask, can both decision makers be there if it's a couple?
We do, but the problem is a lot of customers can't do it during the day. So we do. We require all of our estimators to be available at least 3 evenings a week on average, and on average 2 appointments during the weekend. So a lot of them will take Saturday morning appointments, 3 evening ones, and the rest of the appointments during the day. So we try to get them there, but we realistically only get about 40 to maybe 50% of both decision makers there. But I find that rarely affects the sale as much as people think. Overall, painting for most of our customers, it's not like it's a massive, massive project. Like they have to redo all the siding on their house or get all new windows, or it's something that most of our customers can afford. They budgeted for. When they tell you they need to talk to their wife about it, it's usually an excuse. They usually don't need to, or if they do, they can call them. Most of the time, we try to get them there because then you can answer, you can basically sell yourself to both people and you can really answer any objections, and you could, find both of their needs, and you can do a much, much higher chance of winning the job with both people are there. But it really, I personally, my sales ratio doesn't go down that much with one person. And if they really do need to talk to the other person, they can't give them a call then, then you set up a time to follow up, and you follow up the next day. But we try to get them in the initial appointment. I recommend any painter on this call, always ask for that and manage your schedule around it if possible, or try to do your appointments in the evenings or the weekends when both people usually can be there. My sales ratio is the best on evening and weekend appointments. I kill it. I love them personally. The days where I'm just spending the entire weekend just doing estimates on Saturday and Sunday, if I don't close, at least 60 to 70% of them, like on the spot, I will be very disappointed in myself.
So. And so your 16 or 20 page leave behind, that's also helping the client sell you to their husband or wife if they did say, I need to wait.
Yep. Just everything we do is a lot more professional between the emails, between all that. And we just look a lot more professional in the beginning. So when some people, they take a month or 2 months or maybe a year to decide on something. Having that booklet there handy, sets you aside from all the other people that they might not even remember who they are or what their name is. And all of a sudden we look like we're professional, and they're just going to go with us by default sometimes on those situations. It's definitely worth having a guide.
I'm going to be building a leave behind. What do you think are the key, most important things to have in that information packet that you leave with them?
So our first page, it talks about really the 2-day difference, why we have quality workmanship, communication, timeliness, trust, and organized systems. So we kind of go into that of why we're different than most painting companies. And then we go into, there's just a lot of little stuff there. We don't read every word for word during the sales appointment. That would drive a lot of customers crazy. But we kind of, we mention the stuff that we know is important to that particular customer. It is all the different product options and bullet points of why that's good. I always try to differentiate with different primers and caulks. Most painters, I find 99% of them will not mention what primer or caulk they're using. And although it's especially on exteriors, like it can be considered a minor. I mean, I think it's important, but just by specifying stuff like that and going into why this caulk is so much better. And most painters will pick up the tube for $1 a piece at the store, and then it's going to crack. It's going to fail pretty quickly. And, we're going to use this lifetime warranty caulk that's elastomeric, stretches a lot better. We're going to use a specialty primer. It's little things like that that help set you apart as well. Because it's sometimes tough as a painting contractor when most people are going to go in there and say that we're going to put 2 coats on the outside of your home, we're going to power wash it, we're going to scrape it, we're going to caulk, we're going to putty, and we're going to prime and paint it. And it's the same items. They're both using Sherwin-Williams Super Paint or whatever it is. And now your differentiating factor is a little bit less. You're differentiating yourself by the level of service that you're going to provide and the professionalism that you provide on the estimate. And the stuff you mentioned in that guide, our workers are, skilled tradesmen. They're not, college students or fly-by-nighters. And then we have the certificate of insurance, which most customers are impressed with, that we provide that. Most companies don't provide that unless asked. And we just have that in the back of every single guide. Goes over it as full workers' comp, auto, umbrella, all that stuff. And it's just a little thing that, just really shows our professionalism throughout the process. So I think that packet is just powerful because that alone sets you apart, that we went through all the effort to create that packet and give it to them, where most painters, like you said, are just like walking up, scratching their chin a few times and then being like, yep, it's about $5,000.
And people like to hold that and some book I read, somebody talked about, like in the sales process, how important it is when we sell to our clients that they can turn around and sell to their friends and family why they bought from us. Right. And if you don't give them the ammo they need to be able to turn around to their loved one who comes home and is like, you just signed a contract for $8,000 to paint our house. Why'd you go with them? And if that person doesn't have some ammo, we just put them in a tough spot.
Yep.
I love it, man. I gotta get one. I gotta build one. I rely on, so we have different businesses, but I rely on so many different things that, these types of things would just help. So you talked about your estimators get a 10% commission?
No, well, it averages out to be about 10, but our system is we give them 15% if they can get the sale when they're there, and 5% if it's a follow-up sale. So it really motivates them highly to go through that extra effort and to make an attempt, because so many it's awkward for people, and it's if there's no extra motivation, they're just gonna be like, yep, give me a call when you get the chance. And that's how it's always been. We've always, in the past, before we did the system, we trained them in a way where we train them. We give them all the skills they need to do this, and they just wouldn't do it. And now that they make 3 times as much money by doing it, they're much more successful in general, and they're going through that extra effort in the house to try to get it while they're there and to make the whole presentation more serious while they're there.
That is fascinating. And a great commission.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They paid strictly on commission?
They start out on a draw salary basis for a certain amount of time. And then, after about 3 months, we cut them off of the draw, and then it's full commission.
I love it. So your guys are making like over 6 figures, a lot of your sales guys?
Yeah. If you're good on a 15% commission system, which is way higher than any company that I've heard has paid for their commission, you can kill it. This year, I'm hoping that I can get one guy well over 200,000 and just have him as an example for everyone else in the future. Like I don't care if I'm paying out an average 13, 14% commission rate on his sales. I want him to, I just want some people to murder it, They're going to bring in $2 million worth of work or maybe more, and they can, with an average commission of 12.5%, they're making $250,000 as a sales rep. Those are the guys that I want on my team.
Yeah, and for a painting company, a lowly painting company, and this guy's taking home more than a banker does.
Yeah,
is pretty much making his own hours, right? He picks when he wants his estimates to be. So in a way, right? So I think that the part that people struggle with here, I know there's a part of me, the old me would have been freaking out about this, but the production is, it seems that the production is just like, oh yeah, they just produce. Once a guy sells 2 million a year, then we just produce it. And I think that is the hardest part for painters to wrap their heads around, because we are like, what do you mean? How are you gonna do? And I love Slavic because he's definitely like proven that that's not how it has to happen, right? You can get fairly unskilled people skilled fairly quickly on doing painting. Mm-hmm. Probably arguably much less than a sales guy, right? Mm-hmm. Talk to me a little bit about production and help me to calm all of these painters out here who are freaking out about how you just sell more paint and then painters will paint and we'll be profitable.
Well, we do our best to, recruit as heavy as we possibly can. We haven't done anything that crazy over the last 2 years. We have consistent job ads on Indeed and ZipRecruiter, and we're sponsoring those, and we're putting flyers out at all the paint stores, and we're doing our best to network with the people that we can. So you have the recruiting engine where you constantly want to be bringing in people. But one big thing, besides systems, actually this whole structure, people is probably the other biggest pillar. You want to have good people. You want to have low turnover. You want to have a good culture. You don't want to have. I would not be able to be where I'm at today if I didn't have a good team behind me. Regardless of all the best systems in the world, you need good people that are happy with their jobs, that are thrilled to be it, that want to build a company, that want to work, and that are going to help drive it forward. And that goes for any position, especially the painters. As far as we have a mix of subcontractors and employees. We're trying to grow both divisions as much as possible, but especially we're focusing more on the employee division this year. Subcontractors, if you can find a good crew that's happy working for you, they can produce a lot of work. And then, it comes down to quality management and customer service management, which is a lot easier to find than try to build 50 employee painters, which is a lot of work. To build 50 subs worth of painters, it's a significant amount less work. So we want to find good painters that we trust, and with whatever they're happy with being paid, we want to either bring them on as an employee to join the team and work as an employee, or to do their own operation, provide their own vehicle, their own insurance, work when they want to. Some of our top service guys are subcontractors. Our best rated guys, Chris is one of them. Every customer loves him. I don't think he's ever gotten less than a 5 stars. Like, they're thrilled about him. They request him by name, and he's a one-man operation, and he can paint at the speed of 2 to 3 painters on average. But regardless of the size of the job, they all request him. They don't care if we're done in 2 days or not. They don't care how long it takes. They just want Chris out there to work on their job. And we have a few other subs that are like that as well. So I think subs gets a bad rep by a lot of painters. Most companies don't do it correctly enough where it does make a difference of quality and customer service. And I'm not going to lie, if I could have a sustainable operation right now with 200 employee painters, and I could grow that sustainably, I wouldn't have subs. I would run it all employee based. But we're dealing with a restraint on labor. We're dealing with if you're trying to scale a business like I am, and I find it easier to grow in both manners. So with subcontractors, you basically have to give them a job, assign a price, make sure they're happy with that job, and then inspect the job, and make sure that you trust the guy that you're working with. Do a lot of training in the beginning. And then after that, just make sure that, they're following the systems that you want to make sure. Make sure that they're taking care of your customers well, trying to communicate and handle a lot of the job aspects for them that make their life easier. And that, so many painters as well, they just hand a job to a subcontractor and they just go do it. And then when it doesn't work out well, they're upset. And then they blame it on the subcontractor model and be like, if I don't do it myself, it's never gonna be done right. It's it's a flawed way of thinking. So So you build systems and quality control systems for each operation, and you grow and you recruit as many good people as you can. And I love Nick Slavic's model of hire a decent human being. We try to, for our employee operation, for about half of our employees that we bring on for painters, we try to bring on fresh people that are good human beings, that are hard workers. A lot of them are, straight out of high school or college, or, they could be any age, but they're just, hungry, they're happy, they're smart, they're humble, and they just want to grow and build in your company. A guy like Nick Slavic he's a master painter, and as you as well, where you have the ability to train them in a lot better, where I need a certain amount of experienced painters to essentially take them on under their wing in my system. So I look for a mix of the two. I look for experienced painters who are happy, hungry, and humble enough, they may not be as great of an outstanding human being as that brand new guy who wants to learn the trade, but they might have some baggage, is all I mean by that. But they're still a good fit for the company. They can, we deal with a little bit of baggage, and besides that, they work out in our company. If there's too much baggage and there's too many issues, then, we let them go. But overall, we're trying to build up as many of those decent human beings that can grow into the trade, and we can develop them into a foreman and put them into a leadership position, and then put people underneath them and they can train them in. That's our goal, and we're hoping to eventually build a large in-house operation with that. But for now, we're trying to scale with both whatever operations we can. But one message to people is don't be afraid of subcontractors. Just do your research and do it right is a big thing.
And like you said, if you don't get to just hire a subcontractor and say, go do that work for me and make me money. Mm-hmm. You have to work them. And you're like with systems and quality control and expectations and it's, you have to earn your money, right? Mm-hmm. Not just give me half of the check and mm-hmm. I got the marketing. Like, that's not enough. Mm-hmm. So to that point, we talked about your sales guys making a bunch of money. What kind of money do your painters make?
So it varies based upon the level, and they can get bonuses per job. So our foreman can essentially, if they come in under budget, they can essentially earn half of that budget that they came in under. So most of our painters are brand new painters from scratch, and I'm in the Milwaukee market, but they start out at $15 an hour this year. Our experienced painters, before they go into a leadership role like production management or quality management, then there's obviously increases there. They can get up to between $25 and $30 an hour plus bonuses on top of that.
I love it.
They usually get a van as well. We give all of our foremen, as long as they can drive a vehicle, we give them a company vehicle, gas card, and stuff like that as well.
What do you guys run for vans?
We have a lot of Chevy Expresses. I love the Chevy Express 1500s. Big fan of those. We've had a lot of Ford Transits as well, but we've had a lot of maintenance issues ourselves with them.
And what about overtime?
Well, we normally don't do a lot of overtime. We usually don't work on weekends. If guys want to, we usually be able to provide it to them if we can get the crew out there. But in general, we usually like to have 4 10-hour days. So we usually try to work Monday through Thursday from about 7 to 5:30 if we can each day. And we keep Fridays a backup day if it rains or something like that. But in general, we try to target them all at as close to 40 hours as possible without going over.
So they're making great money. There's an incentive to make more money by working hard, which humans love. So across the board, you're running a successful, profitable company, and it's not on the backs of painters taking advantage of them. And like, I think some people would think that it is, I don't, but I know that a guy who's painting what I was painting every day, making no money, banging my head against the wall, miserable, but yet thinking I had all the answers. I would have looked at your operation and deep down I would have been insanely jealous. But rather than admit that I was insanely jealous, I would have talked a bunch of crap about you and your company and all the reasons why it was stupid. And that was mostly because I was insecure and I was unhappy and I didn't know how to get out of my own way. I've come a long way. I've done a lot of personal growth work to get to the point where now I meet a guy like you and I'm like, how'd you do it? I want to know, right? I can, you're not Elon Musk, and even like, no offense, but like this can be done by people, right? This is not, you don't have a freaking PhD in like neuroscience. You've tried things and iterated, and it's possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I hope that there's some people out here listening who maybe were where I was, and I understand, but I think it's far more valuable to look at the possibilities here and go, I want to be. I honestly, I look up to you and what you've done. Like, I want to build a company like that, and it's so easy to look at this and be like, yeah, screw that guy. But I find it far more valuable to, I'm so grateful I got the chance to interview you here, because this is gonna, every time I talk to you, I'm like, I get more invigorated to go work on the business. So man, thank you for coming. We have 3 questions that we ask at the end of every interview.
Okay.
The first one is they started from the very first one, so bear with me. The first one is a DIY painting tip. Do
it yourself.
Do it yourself,
Yeah.
for homeowners out there.
Okay. If you're staining a deck, it's very easy not to do a very thorough power wash, but you have no idea how much dirt is actually on that deck. Once you clean one board, you realize it looks like a completely different board, and if it's never going to last if you don't do thorough prep on your deck.
I love it. Great tip. All right, then how about your favorite piece of paraphernalia? Paint paraphernalia. You're a business, run a business. What is your favorite tool, software program, whatever it is that allows you to do what you do?
Honestly, Google Sheets, as simple as it sounds. I run my life off of spreadsheets. Probably have thousands of different spreadsheets for different things. And I have one spreadsheet that has like 100 tabs on it that I basically organize my life with it. So I know I could probably use a program to simplify that, but it works well for me. I like it.
I love it, man. And that's the kind of stuff that I know I'm working to be comfortable. I have the hurdle, as small as it is for me, it's a big one for me, as small as it is for you. But like I'm trying to work order out for every job. And that is a massive task for me right now. I've been verbally telling people, most of our jobs are fairly large, and we're there for a while, and it's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And it's all verbal, right? And the leap that it's taking me, that I'm finding is so difficult to get an easy spreadsheet to fill out, easy for me to take from Drive, fill it out, put it into Slack. For me, that's the first step. I'm trying to figure out a way to actually just do that. And we're trying to do Google Sheets as well. Do you have any tips for me on that?
I'm not necessarily I like my Google Sheets, but I'm not enough of a computer automated expert. So I don't think I can help you out there.
All right. Now we probably already answered this question earlier in the show, but what is the biggest, most embarrassing mistake that you've ever made in business, other than the $250,000 loss that you just took on an experiment?
Yeah, that was definitely a pretty big mistake. One thing I realized, the year that I grew to about $1.5 million, I also decided to, so definitely made a lot of mistakes that year. I mean, it ended up well, but I decided to add on roofing and windows and siding, thinking that, I could, develop crews, figure out pricing. And we did figure out all that, materials to quote, all that stuff. But it tanked my marketing for painting, not being a specialist anymore. So many people want to do everything. They want to be a remodeler, they want to be a roofer, they want to be a landscaper, whatever they want to be, and they want to do it all at once. They want to be a handyman or a generalist. But it's so hard to market and come off add real value as a specialist to customers when you do that. So now if I decide to start a window company in the future, it's going to be under a different brand name, completely different brand operation. And it's going to be, a window specialist company. And then we have a painting company over here. So that was just a lot of work and hassle, and definitely lost a lot of money on marketing on that. And, but I learned a lot of data, and I learned a very important lesson that, helps structure the future growth of the company.
That's an awesome tip. I heard a client this week. I referred her. I was not, we had done work for her in the past on a different project, and I knew we were a good fit for this project. And I referred her to a guy I know who does, he's a small time, like, I don't know, smaller GC, more like self-performs a lot of different things. And I was talking to her, and I'm like, did you hire him? She's like, no, he was going to do everything. I don't, how could he be good? He's going to do everything. And, I know he could do every single one of the things she needs done. He can do it. But the perceived value wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting insight, because you and I both know you can do both, right? This is not talking about a heart surgeon doing a foot surgery, and both require lifelong training to get done.
Mm-hmm.
But clients don't see it that way.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Phillips about how he does it?
I have talked with him a little bit about it, and I really look up to Jason Phillips. I think he's a great guy. You should definitely get him on your podcast if you get a chance. Yeah, he's very successful with it, but I think painting is still his largest operation that he runs off of it. So I know companies that are successful and do a lot of things under one umbrella and others that don't, but I have talked to a lot more companies that it hurt them more than helped them putting everything under that one umbrella and being a generalist.
Awesome. Well, dude, I'm so grateful for your time. You're an inspiration to me. You're an absolute beast. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me. And it's always good chatting. And I'm sure I'll see you at a convention sometime soon.
Absolutely.
All right. Have a great one.